This is DME TV and you are watching our program DME Dialogue. This is a program wherein we invite distinguished persons from different walks of life to talk to us on varied issues, on the issues of their expertise, and then tell our viewers the kind of tips, the kind of information and the knowledge which could be usable. And luckily today Mr. Puneet Jain is with us. He has been a journalist, he has been an investment banker, he is an expert in economy and finance. So, he has a unique blend of so many things into one. Thank you Mr. Puneet Jain to be with us and to spare time to talk to us.
Thank you Ambrish Ji for inviting me.
So, initially we want to ask you, since you have been in varied areas, how did you decide which career you will be opting for, and whether you decided your courses, the academic program that you took up in that light, or it somehow kept on happening?
So, like often it used to happen in our day and age that you got into professions accidentally. Yeah. So, I also got into this line of work accidentally, in a sense that I had done my business management MBA, and then like any other aspiring person at that point of time in the late 80s, I wanted a corporate job. I did join a corporate job, but very soon somehow I got an opportunity to work with Indian Express Group, and I started from there. And then there was no looking back, because I think journalism, media is truly the window to the world. I mean, a lot of people who come into journalism, who come into media, they get exposure to so many events which are happening. First of all, that is an opportunity. Secondly, we also develop a keen sense of observation. That is what most of the journalists or most of the media people must develop, is that ability to observe trends, ability to observe what is happening around us, and we are alive to that. I think that is what also prepares us for the future. So, while I was a journalist, we kept observing emerging trends. Also, happily, it was a time when Indian economy was opening up.
So, this was, I mean, somehow happened. So, were you influenced by a certain senior journalist of that time, or there were some family members who were into journalism, and what kept you there working as a journalist in newspapers?
So, I think my gurus in journalism are really, I want to thank them from the depth of my heart, because I was of course brought into journalism by Mr. Swaminathan Iyer, who had just moved from the World Bank to Indian Financial Express at that time. In fact, he was the one who picked me from corporate job and inducted me as a journalist in Financial Express. Then subsequently I had the good fortune of working with eminent people like Dr. T.N. Nayanan, Mr. A.K. Bhattacharya, with a lot of eminent journalists we had the opportunity of working, and I really learned a lot from them. How to ability to separate the facts from opinions, how to keep focus on core issues, and how to express oneself, how to reach out to the readers. I think that is an art. It is so one learns a lot of science of communication, but I think ultimately expression is an art. And journalists are well equipped for it.
Which newspapers prominently you worked with?
I started with the Financial Express, and then I worked with Economic Times. So these two newspapers broadly, with Economic Times I worked for 15 years. I started as a correspondent, a senior correspondent, and last I held the position of senior editor.
What were majorly the beats that you covered as a correspondent?
So, mostly my beats, because Economic Times was the paper and largely the focus was economy, I covered most of the beats. Usually the beat reporter does, right from the Press Information Bureau to the Chambers of Commerce to various departments of the government. But in the later half I was covering Finance Ministry, I was covering stock markets, which then eventually became my specialization. And after 1995, for the last 10 years of my tenure with Economic Times, I was the investment editor and senior investment editor, looking after all the investment related reports, and I think that shaped my future going forward.
So, when you joined journalism was not considered a very lucrative profession. From the social side also, from the family side also, there were not approvals. The same happened with me when I joined journalism. The family did not support. So, whether you experienced any such kind of thing wherein you were not getting the support of the family and the friends to take up the profession of journalism?
You are absolutely right. And when I started and I told my family that I am joining journalism, they were surprised. They said, after MBA, why do you want to go to journalism? Journalism is meant for political science students
Yeah.
or economics, no, hardcore economics students. So it was considered more to be an academic exercise rather than no professional exercise for prosperity. In fact, journalists were considered to be inherently poverty
Yeah, exactly.
driven kind
Yeah.
of. So that was the image of a journalist, that you can't be
then,
prosperous when you are a
yeah,
journalist.
but then you feel contented as a journalist with whatever period you worked in.
Very much. In fact, two things happened. One was that 1990s, like when the economy turned, the liberalization came, that also became the period of liberalization for media. In fact, I remember those days, a lot of new newspapers came, and there was a sudden jump in even in salaries. When I joined Indian Express, I in fact took a salary drop from my last corporate job. I took a salary drop and then I joined Financial Express. I was just keen to learn journalism, and that is why I did that. But eventually, this corporate jobs, journalism started paying well, and more than that, I think the value addition it did to my knowledge. And when I changed from journalism to investment banking and worked for a bank, then it became extremely useful. So I think one thing that journalists must do, and based on my experiences, they must develop a domain knowledge also. It is when we are working in journalism, we cover a lot of fields, and typically we become general journalists. No? We know a lot about a lot of things, but we don't develop deep knowledge of a subject. I think what helped me was that while I was a journalist, I picked one field, investment in research and investments, and I became a specialist in that. I think a lot of journalists should try to become specialists at least in one subject, which becomes a
So
domain knowledge.
in DME, in fact, we have a lot of budding journalists. So this will be a very great advice from your side that how they should approach journalism if they
Absolutely.
join.
While they are working, we follow all the principles of journalism and we follow that entire path. The truth is that the domain knowledge will then, in the latter half of the career, so after you've done 10, 15 years of journalism or 20 years of journalism, it is the domain knowledge and your expertise in a subject which actually becomes very handy. And I would suggest to all journalists, budding journalists, aspiring journalists, to develop deep domain knowledge of at least one subject.
So how did you decide after doing journalism for so long, then you turn to investment and finance? How, I mean, how these things?
So, like I said that I was doing investment product investment side for Economic Times for 10 years, and a lot of people used to tell me that look, writing about investments is one thing, and doing in the actual markets it is very difficult, and it is not what it appears to be. So at some point of time I said, okay, let me learn that aspect also. And idea was that I will do probably professional banking for some time and then come back to journalism with richer knowledge. So I joined, I quit Economic Times. I had a very interesting offer from a very large international bank. I said okay, and they wanted that domain knowledge because they also wanted a person with the ability to observe. I think that is a great skill that journalists develop, and I got an opportunity. Of course, after that I liked it so much that I haven't made a major comeback to journalism except for a very brief stint as managing editor of Statesman for a couple of years.
So what kind of activities you are in these days, and what all ventures you have started?
So Amrishji, I have now I'm a full-time investor. I invest in public markets, basically stock markets. We also invest in private equity. We fund with venture capital, so a few startups and investments in public markets. So which involves a lot of research, economic research, because investment is about future. We don't look at the past trends and try to see and try to make investments. Investment involves a lot of anticipation, a lot of forecasting of economy, a lot of trying to see where we are going, and then we make investments in future winners. And similarly in startups, as you know, and venture capital requires a similar expertise. And it's also very exciting. No, it gives you a sense of new achievements every day. It is, and therefore I think investments is I feel is my calling right now. And
so this research, as you said, is a very essential area in the work that you are doing these days. Can you further elaborate what kind of researches you focus on, and how did you manage it, and I mean how this whole apparatus is built for this?
Absolutely. So research, I think, is the heart of any activity. I'm saying investment, but not only investment. You go to any field of life and any field of work. to be knowledgeable and to be research based is very important, because then it gives you the possibilities of a glitch or some fallback, and then you can correct your course. Research, of course, again when I say this, journalism I consider to be my main pillar on which I stand today, because journalism told us how to conduct research, how to do comprehensive research, which are the areas from which we can get data. Then we organize that data to draw conclusions. A lot of people, in this age of social media today, there's a lot of information around us, data around us. But that data has to be converted into actionable information. That is a skill a lot of people lack. So journalists, they get a lot of information, then they distill that information into a news item to draw some conclusion. I think that is the heart of research. A lot of research just goes on data mining, but unless you convert that data into information, so that is the focus of our research. So we collect data points from various sources, then we try to see what are the trends which are emerging, whether in consumption or in expenditure, in investment side. And we feel that these sectors are growing, then in those sectors we make investments.
So, I mean, there's one area which we can call the financial learning. A lot of people do not have enough understanding and knowledge as far as investment is concerned. How do you do that? Do you have any program or any such thing which you would have designed, or which you think should have been done or should be done for the financial learning of the investors?
Absolutely. So, again, I think this is a great gap in our education, even in our formal education system. So, there is something called financial inclusion and financial literacy. Financial inclusion is, of course, including more people at the bottom of the pyramid to be part of the financial system. That government is doing through various programs, we know. Yeah. But what we lack today is the emphasis on financial literacy. Even educated people, even young people, people who are working today, if you ask them, do they know the difference between PPF, NPS? They don't know. They don't know how to save. They don't know. So most of the money they earn probably is lying in their savings bank accounts. They don't know how to earn money on money. See, ultimately it is our ability, incomes never, this is something which I never tire of telling people. We never become rich by earning more. We become rich by saving more, when our savings become big. So if I bought a house and that value of that house goes up, I become rich. By earning more, very few people became rich. That is what history tells us. It is when the earners saved money and that savings grew, they became rich. But very few people know about this. So financial literacy, I think financial literacy should be a mandatory part of curriculum right from 11th onwards. From 11th, 12th, we can teach students about basics of financial system, and I think college onwards, that should be mandatory. It should be like language. They must learn financial literacy.
But there are a lot of apprehensions in the minds of the people, particularly young people, given the current economic situation, and people feel that this kind of economy will not take them anywhere, and there are lesser opportunities, lesser possibilities of growth. What do you think about this kind of situation, and what would you like to suggest to the young people?
Ambrish, it is right that right now Indian economy is going through a patch of some challenges. We've seen a sharp downturn in growth. Not that we are in recession, we are still growing at 4.5–5%. Recession, of course, is defined as growth coming down, actually negative growth for at least 2 quarters. So I don't think we are in recession, and nor is there a likelihood to be in recession. But a growing country like India with large population, with very young population, it needs higher growth. If we want employment for everybody, we want everybody to be prosperous, then we need 6–7% kind of growth. Only then we can reach here. I was giving this example earlier. In 1990, when we started on this journey of liberalization, and we were 30 years younger, we starting our lives, the per capita income used to be just 200. India's GDP was just $250 billion. There was not much to earn for people. Today we have a $2 trillion economy, $3 trillion economy. There is an opportunity for people to earn, and we need this growth to be more. However, the current downturn, of course, is causing concern, like you said, among youngsters, that they feel that they may not have enough opportunity. Let me assure all youngsters that we have seen these kind of patches in the past also. We have seen the late 80s and early 90s. You will remember, India had to mortgage gold in 1990 to import things. I mean, we did not have enough money. Today, India is among the top foreign exchange holders. We have $460 billion of foreign exchange reserves. We had only $4 billion in 1990. We did not know how we will import food. So if from those days we have come this far and among all the challenges, then there is no reason to believe that we will not overcome the current downturn. What is the need of the hour is to keep your faith, to prepare for the future. So we recognize what are the challenges today, and I prepare for that future at an individual level. At a society level, of course, the government will take care of the slowdown. But I think youngsters should focus on skills. This economy is going to need more skills, more skilled people, and they will earn a lot. I think they should focus on skills.
Despite the positive outlook that you presented, don't you feel that there are some problems somewhere as far as the policy making is concerned?
See, policy makers make mistakes. So I am not saying that policy makers will not make mistakes. They do make mistakes. Mistakes were made always. Whether we look at 70s, 80s, 90s, even in liberalization. Within liberalization, we had problems where banks, the public sector banks, they lent a lot of money, then they became NPAs. So all those things have happened, and current policymakers are also taking decisions. My belief is that largely, if you look at the economic decisions, they have been taken in good faith. The government takes decisions which it believes are better for the economy. Some of those decisions may not go down well. If you look at, even in current scenario, if you look at demonetization, if you look at GST, there will be people who will say that these are not smart decisions, they are not good decisions, they have hurt economy. But I would say, maybe, I don't know, I mean jury is out, but the decisions appear to have been taken in good faith. We have seen that happen in the past. And given the fact that the way the economy is growing, and I believe the worst, if you want my immediate assessment, I would say the worst of growth slowdown is now behind us. I think if you look at high frequency indicators, I expect the growth to come back from March quarter onwards. So
what do you feel, till what time we will be the 5 trillion economy as?
So it may not be 5 years. So 2024 appears to be difficult because we need to grow at 8-9%, which is very not possible right now. But I think by 2030, definitely, we will be a $5 trillion economy. And remember, at $5 trillion, we will be the 4th largest economy in the world. We are right now the 5th. We are just behind Germany. The US is largest, China, Japan, Germany, and India. If we become $5 trillion economy, first of all, our incomes will double. So everybody becomes richer. Secondly, we will become the 4th largest, ahead of Germany and just behind Japan. So I think that will be quite an achievement.
But to what extent the global scenario will be impacting Indian economy, particularly if we can refer to the problem which is happening between China and the US, and instability and geopolitical problems in different parts of the world. To what extent you feel that that is all going to impact the Indian economy?
So Ambrishji, what happens is that usually in economic journey, if you have favorable global environment, then it becomes a tailwind. It gives you, so what we could have done in 10 years, probably we would have done in 5 years. If global economy was favorable, if there was no US-China trade war, if everything was happy, for world economy, then we would have achieved, I would have said, instead of 2030, I would have said 2024, 25, probably we will be a $5 trillion economy. But because we have these headwinds, we're going to take longer. We will probably take 10 years. However, we must understand that it does not change the direction of our growth. It is not that we will go back from 3 trillion to we'll go back to $2 trillion. We are going to keep growing. The direction, the speed may keep changing. And what is important, I think, is the fact that India as a democracy has succeeded. See, that is the basic thing. We will have differences, political differences, there will be ups and downs, there will be all kinds of noise. And you will remember that 80s and 90s were far more chaotic. Politically, economically. I mean, remember the politics was so unstable. Governments, we never had a stable government in 1990s. All governments were coalition governments. They would fall every couple of years. And amid all that political instability and uncertainty, India kept growing. So, and today, actually, if you see the political environment, is far better than what it was in 80s and 90s. So, I have no reason to believe that politics and geopolitics affect the direction. They may affect the speed. So, let's see.
So thank you, Mr. Puneet Jain, to talk to us and to throw light on such a varied subject. And we end this program with the optimistic note that everything go well in Indian economy and the country will grow with a fast pace. That is all in this program today in DME Dialogue, and you are watching DME TV.